What's up everyone, it's Lethal, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to use Raw Excel, and more importantly, why you should use Raw Excel. Now, if you quickly go into your mouse settings in Windows and you go down to additional mouse settings, one of the settings you'll see underneath the pointer options tab is Enhance Pointer Precision. Now, needless to say, I have this option unchecked because it has nothing to do with the type of mouse Excel that I'm using. Make sure that this is unchecked, but we are still going to be using mouse acceleration. Now I'm going to open up this program. These are the settings that I use. My mouse acceleration caps out at a certain sensitivity. And if I enable my last mouse movement, you can see that when I move my mouse in very small amounts, that's the only spot where the accel happens. When I'm barely moving my mouse at all, it accels up into a certain point and then it caps out at my normal sensitivity. That's the only spot where my mouse accelerates, but it actually deaccelerates from what the normal sensitivity would be. So small hand movements move very slow. When I move it any faster than a small hand movement, like an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, any speed at all, and the acceleration is at the top. Now, the only graph that I pay attention to is the ratio of output to input. The shape velocity chart's a little bit messed up. With the numbers and the settings that I have, there are two options that I try. One is with the gain box checked, and as you can see, my mouse isn't moving very fast. Whenever my hand speed is very small, you can see that on this graph, which shows the ratio of output to input, there is a slight bit of deacceleration. This isn't really accelerating higher than my mouse's sensitivity. The only accel that's happening is it's slowing down my mouse whenever I'm barely moving my hand. And this feels more intuitive than having just a flat line, all the way across. Because I like using high sensitivity, but I don't like trying to make fine adjustments and aim at targets that are far away while using high sensitivity and just missing all of my shots because of over adjusting. So this allows me to have the best of both worlds. It allows me to have control with high sensitivity. Therefore, I can really ignore medium and low sensitivities altogether and just go for the highest possible sensitivity. Why would I want this? Well, in Fortnite, I like being able to have fine aim, but I don't want my sensitivity so low that when someone jumps over my head, I can't turn around. It helps me to be able to reset my mouse position on my mouse pad less often during fights, even though I use a full desk-sized mouse mat. The speed of velocity chart doesn't really make sense. I mean, according to this, it would seem that I move my mouse and it speeds up and then all of a sudden it slows back down, but that's really not the case at all. It's just that when I have the gain off, instead of it being a curve, it's pretty linear and it goes up at an angle and immediately goes flat instead of having like a gradual curve. And sometimes I actually like the feel of this linear accel. Sometimes I like the feel of this gradual accel. It really just depends on what the game is and how often I've been playing during the week. But the most comfortable is definitely with the gradual curve. I feel like this is easier to control, but with the linear, it's more precise. I've not always used Raw Excel. Before using Raw Excel, I was actually using Purple Hot Mouse Excel, and I found a video by Kovac. He was actually suggesting that people try to use Purple Hot Mouse Excel. Purple Hot Mouse Excel is a program that pretty much has very similar settings. And when I started using Purple Hot Mouse Excel, I actually had completely different settings. My DPI was on 800. And since then, the only things that really have changed is that I've lowered my cap output, which is the Sens cap in Purple Hot Mouse Excel, to 175 instead of 200. And I've changed my DPI from 800 to 6400, which is 8 times the DPI. Just, because it feels smoother to me. I have a much better PC, much better mouse pad surface, and better mouse that can handle higher DPI. Another thing that's changed is the input offset. I haven't really used input offsets a lot in the past, but this kind of does help. It kind of extends the amount of hand movement that I can do very slightly, barely noticeable. It extends the amount of hand movement that I can do before it gives the accel. So if I barely just twitch a millimeter, it may or may not accel that much. The input offset, I can feel it, you may not be able to feel it. If you're trying mouse accel for the first time, I highly recommend that you just copy paste my settings. One thing that you might want to watch out for is this rotation. The only reason I have rotation is so that because of the way I grip my mouse, I hold my mouse kind of at an angle, and negative 3.5 degrees, it counters the angle that I hold my mouse and allows me to still move my mouse straight in a straight line from left to right rather than it being like at a curve because of the way I'm holding my mouse. Real quick tip, if you want the best performance out of this driver, when you're changing your settings, you're going to want to run it as admin, but I would uncheck show last mouse move, hit apply. That way you don't have it eating up more CPU. Depending on the spec of your computer, I have a really high-end computer, and by that I mean a computer that costs over $3,000, totaling all the parts. And if I move my mouse really fast, in game I feel, micro stutters with the setting turned on, so therefore I turn it off. And if you're on a low or medium end PC, then what you should do is probably just turn it off as well. So there are a lot of videos talking about mouse ACCEL. A lot of people stop using it. The most popular use case I've found where people use mouse ACCEL the most is in Valorant and CSGO. I've not really run across anybody using mouse ACCEL in Fortnite. I feel like I'm kind of the only one. It can't be true, right? I mean, someone who's using mouse ACCEL in Valorant probably just leaves it on for other games. But as far as content, I don't see people using Purple Hot mouse ACCEL or raw ACCEL in Fortnite. A lot of people probably will try this and never use it again because it doesn't work in the first 5 minutes to improve their aim, but it's something that is going to improve your aim over time. But at first, it definitely decreases your accuracy. Like, you're going to have to get used to this. It makes aiming much harder, but it also raises the skill ceiling. And what I would compare it to is using exponential on controller. Now, of course, there's no aim assist on mouse and key, but if players can use controller and use exponential, then on mouse and key, if your brain can keep up with the ACCEL and DXL that's naturally built into input types like exponential settings on controller, then it can definitely handle doing this on the mouse where you have infinitely more control. And that's just the science behind why I use it. I use it because obviously people do well on controller and there's ACCEL. ACCEL on your mouse is not going to keep you from hitting your shots. The human brain uses all different types of calculations. Your brain is actually a mechanical genius, and there's not a single obstacle that you could throw at it that basically it won't overcome over a pretty short period of time. Like, your brain is going to adjust. What I will say is if you use raw ACCEL for over a week or so, it's probably going to make it to where, like, let's say you just use it for a week and you turn it off. What I notice is when I turn off raw ACCEL, or I actually forget to turn it on, it makes it much, much harder for me to aim with regular mouse sensitivity settings with no ACCEL. With no ACCEL, it's really hard. If I just turn it off mid-game, my aim will be really shaky. It's not gonna make it impossible to aim, but you will have to definitely lower your sensitivity, and it's going to feel weird. The distance that you move your mouse in order to aim at things isn't how far you actually have to use your mouse. Basically, when you turn off mouse ACCEL, your aim is going to be bad, and then you're going to have to adjust to using regular mouse sensitivity, regular mouse DPI. The last thing I'll say is once you use my specific settings within raw ACCEL, the only number that you're going to change is your in-game sensitivity. Don't change your DPI. If you change your DPI, it's going to change the way that this raw ACCEL feels. My best advice is copy my settings, try them out, and if your sensitivity doesn't feel that good, then change your sensitivity in game. Take a screenshot of your previous sensitivity just in case you want to go back to not using raw ACCEL. Take a screenshot of your settings just in case you want to go back and disable raw ACCEL so you don't lose them, but you're going to have to raise your sensitivity settings in order for this to feel good. Any sensitivity that you're already using, once you enable these settings, your sensitivity is going to feel super low. So you're going to have to raise your sensitivity, increase your sensitivity by quite a bit, maybe even twice your sensitivity. I can't tell you the exact numbers that are going to feel good for you, but you're going to have to change your sensitivity. The reason why I switched from using Purple Hot mouse ACCEL to raw ACCEL is simply for compatibility issues. Purple Hot mouse ACCEL has always worked just fine with Call of Duty, Apex, Fortnite, but when I downloaded Valorant, it got blocked by the anti-cheat and disabled. And maybe it wasn't even the anti-cheat, could have been something else, but the driver triggers something in the game software that disables the driver completely, makes it where you can't use it. That's when I found raw ACCEL, because raw ACCEL is compatible with pretty much every game out there. Valorant, CSGO, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Call of Duty, anything you could possibly play, raw ACCEL is most likely compatible with it, and there's not a problem. In my experience, with any game I've played that's a first-person shooter or a third-person shooter, never had a problem with raw ACCEL. I do have a video on how to use Purple Hot mouse ACCEL, but as far as I know, it only really works with Fortnite, Call of Duty, and Apex, and not any other game. So it's really just a waste, and this software is more intuitive, has more settings. There are some things that I did like about Purple Hot mouse ACCEL, but all of the settings and features that it has that raw ACCEL doesn't are settings and features that I don't even use anyway. It was just simpler to understand, like the menu made more sense, but it didn't have all of these charts. It literally had one chart and it never showed anything like your last mouse move, it never showed anything like that. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comment section if you have any questions or concerns. Also, if you have any ideas for any future videos, comment down there as well. Hope you have a great day and we'll see you next time.